Good morning, it's 8 a.m. and welcome to the 2021 Information Security Summit. I'm Robert Nettgen, and I have the privilege of welcoming you to this year's summit event, the 19th Annual Information Security Summit, and we're back in person, at least, well, some of us are online there in the virtual world. And that's okay, CRob, you can walk across the camera. I mean, you know, it's not like live television. I mean, it's more like live Zoom casting from Cleveland, Ohio. And that's where we are. We're in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, coming to you from the Wyndham Hotel. And this is Security Friends. I have my friends coming up here on stage to talk a little bit about some of the news stories, just as we warm up in this very chilly room here.
I like it.
Yeah, so
I'm going to build a fire later.
In case you need to cough or anything, we got little cough buttons on these microphones. I mean, this is a high-class act. We've got a top-notch crew here maintaining
I'd
audio
like to
and
buy a
video.
valve.
I mean, it's really, really cool. And it's
Not
also
as cool as you.
It's cool. Well, anyway, let me introduce the panel. We have April Volk, Senior Vice President and Cyber Security Executive at Wells Fargo.
Hi to the huge crowd here.
Also with us on our morning panel of security friends, Mr. Joe Dawes, Senior Cyber Security Technical Sales Manager at IBM. Mr. Christopher Robinson, his friends call him CRob. He is Director of Communications for Intel Product Assurance and Security at Intel. Oh, I got Intel on there twice. That's redundant.
We like that.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. All right, and these are our security friends as we go into our security news stories. Unhappy customers and their own tricks used against them. Oh, this is poetic justice. Revil, or R-Evil, depending on how you say that, ransomware gang reportedly pulled offline by multi-country operations. You know, this is like a good movie script, you know? I'm thinking there should be like a movie, you know, cue the bad guy music and the good guys or something like that. As noted, notorious ransomware gang R-Evil disappeared. Recent reports have now shed light on why this may be. The R-Evil Leaks blog, known as Happy Blog, I wonder why they call it that, was made inaccessible on October 17th, the same day one of its operators announced the group was shutting down due to a hijacking of their domain on the Russian forum XSS, according to security vendor Flashpoint. Now, we may know why. According to Reuters, they've reported that the cyber gang was taken down by a multi-country operation. According to VMware cybersecurity strategy boss Tom Kellerman, who also advises the U.S. Secret Service on cybercrime operations, he said that police and intelligence agencies across the world worked together to stop the group's operations. He told the Newswire the FBI, you know, I'm just waiting for the music to cue up, you know, it sounds like a TV show. The FBI, in conjunction with Cyber Command, the Secret Service, and like-minded countries have truly engaged in significant disruptive actions against these groups. Chalk one up for the good guys.
One, yes.
Good guys won, bad guys
won.
2000.
Are we like the football team, you know, that's being trounced? I mean, it is one. I mean, is the tide turning?
No.
What I think you're seeing is a response to political pressure. With the new administration, they have said that cybersecurity is a higher importance in their agenda, and they were going to be tougher. And I think this is potentially a concession.
Now, when you say a concession,
Can I have the glass full here?
okay, all right, no, please.
So I think that this is, the tide is turning, and what it's going to take is for all of us to work together. So I think that's the key message we should take out of the story, although I do understand your point. But in order to combat these people, we all need to work together, public sector, private sector, and share information.
You mean it is actually possible to get the bad guys, even though they're otherwise out of the reach of law enforcement?
So I agree with what they both said, like the executive order, right? It's not the end-all, be-all, end-all, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. And the reality of what we see in stories like that playing out is, obviously, cybercrime is actually a business, right? It's a professional business. The bad guys have offices, they have, you know, budgets, they have all that stuff, right? And they're doing what we're doing, right?
Do you think they create PowerPoint presentations?
Yeah,
God, I hope-
They,
I can
yeah,
just
you know
imagine
what?
the
They
bad guy
do.
strategic
I've
meeting.
seen them. They do, actually.
And we interviewed Kevin Baker a couple weeks ago for our podcast, and he now does cybersecurity insurance response full-time. And I can't recall the specific figure, but last year in 2020, the ransomware industry the revenue was in the trillions of dollars. It was somewhere between 2 and 6 trillion, that was the figure he quoted me. And whereas in 2018, I think it was like 200 million
Yeah.
or in the billions. So it is a business, and I hope they have PowerPoint, because that's what they should get, those jerks.
Yeah, but they're all human beings, and how do they organize? They organize similar to what we do. I mean, obviously, they're not sitting in meetings after, all end all day, but they're running a business, right?
But how do these bad guys hide all their wealth? Isn't it like Superman 4? Where all of a sudden you see this race car come through the parking lot. How do we know who has embezzled all this money? I mean, isn't it going to be like a scene like that? I mean, you got to know who these bad guys are. I mean, you can't hide all that money, can you?
Well, they generally don't live in places like the United States or the UK. Most of these organizations are run elsewhere in other parts of the globe,
You mean like Russia?
maybe.
Hacker sells the data for millions of Moscow drivers for $800. Yes. Hackers are selling a stolen database containing 50 million records of Moscow driver data on an underground forum for only $800, according to Russian media outlets that purchased the database. The data appears to be valid and contains records collected between 2006 and 2019. Russian news publisher Kommersant, if I said that correctly, called a small sample of the exposed individuals confirmed, and that the stolen data is accurate, even if outdated in some cases. The database contains the following details on Moscow
Here we
car
go.
owners: full names, dates of birth, phone numbers, VIN codes, license plate numbers, car brand and model, car year of registration. As a bonus to the buys, the seller provides an additional file containing information collected in 2020, which stops when Russia moved from regional databases to a central storage system in the Federal Information System of the State Traffic Safety Inspectorate. The source of the data is not known. This matches the alleged source, which according to the database is a seller from inside the Moscow Traffic Police Department. It was an inside building.
The call is coming from inside the building.
Now, seriously, if somebody did this in Moscow, do you think that they're more likely to be caught?
I think when they're caught, they will get an all-expenses-paid trip to Siberia.
They'd be lucky if that's what they got, right? Yeah. The penalties are far greater there, right?
I don't think the penalties are even specified. I think they're just imagined at the last minute. But
Right.
also, we should probably not even trust this, because if you were the bad guy, wouldn't you try to throw shade on somebody else? I mean, so that's also
Well,
the
and
fear, is being that.
especially, Putin has a policy where they look the other way for a lot of cyber activities, as long, and there's a couple rules, and the first rule is you may not operate within the mother country.
I have heard that if you put a Russian keyboard option in your Windows configuration, that your system is more resistant to malware. That malware sees a Russian keyboard and it avoids your laptop. It avoids detonating on your system.
I've heard that as well. I
That
don't
is-
want
That's one indicator.
Is that a
obviously.
recommendation for the audience?
Here, let me turn
Maybe
that.
in a
Can I
maybe
do that
in a
on my
sandbox.
No, I have heard that as well.
Yeah.
We should go ask Dave.
Yeah, really, we should.
CRob, what's rule number 2 on Putin's list?
I beg your pardon?
When Putin calls, you must do what he asks you to do.
Okay,
It was a very short list of rules.
very interesting.
Well, if I ever had gone into broadcasting, other than my earlier part of life, and I had actually done cybersecurity, I would be, I'm laughing my head off of this story. Ransomware made KBOI do the weather without computers. Experts say all organizations need to prepare.
That's on a whiteboard.
It's not even a whiteboard. It looks like
Oh, flip chart.
it's a flip chart with
He's using a marker.
It's a map with a push pin.
He should have a little happy sun.
Viewers of Boise TV station KBOI, CBS2, might have noticed something different. The station's newscasts did not have graphics, music, or even a working weather computer, which those used to be running on Unix, so they must have gotten cheap somewhere along the line. I mean, I remember from...
Is Unix still around?
Hey,
Just joking.
25 years ago, they were not running Windows. I can definitely confirm that. Station meteorologist Roland Stedham, if I said his name right, powered through with an easel and a magic marker. The station's reporters, editors, and producers still got news on the air, but they did it decidedly in an old school way, without most of their computers. KBOI's owner, Sinclair Broadcast Group, was hit with what it called a cybersecurity incident, with computers and servers infected with ransomware. CNN reports a Russian hacking group, it's those Russians again, a Russian hacking group whose primary motive is profit was behind the attack. The station is back up and running with most of its tools in place again. At its simplest form, ransomware uses some type of vulnerability in an organization's computer system to encrypt computers, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, we all know that. We're security nerds. But
How accurate was that forecast versus the one that they used?
probably much better.
Yeah.
Did they talk about that in the article? Or
yeah, well, how
not
do
really?
they get the temperature? Do they run outside and look
look
at
out
a
the window.
thermometer? I mean, or maybe they just pulled their watch, which shows. Siri's listening to me. My goodness, here, 50 degrees outside. But yeah, really, how did they do that? How much?
Magic 8-ball?
Today's going to be cloudy.
Well, it's actually an interesting story, and you think about what everyone's talking about lately, cyber resiliency, right?
Yeah.
It's, here you are, a weather, weatherman or weather station or weather organization, and how do you do that, right? And that's interesting. They're using flip charts, and I doubt they had that conversation before that happened, right? How are we going to do the weather if we have no access to our systems?
It's been a long
It's an
time since
interesting
I worked in the
conversation.
broadcast industry. I last worked in the broadcast industry behind the scenes, not on the air, in 1998. But I know that back then broadcasters were very, shall we say, budget-minded.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that trend continues.
By the way, interesting side note, I saw on the registration, the attendees, I think I saw this, Betsy Kling. Do you guys know who that is?
Yeah.
Yes.
She's a local, she's registered for this.
You seriously?
So if she was here, I would ask her, are they having those tabletop
Attention,
She'd
Betsy
exercises?
be the
Kling.
perfect one to hear that story.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't, so my guess is, it's either A, it is her, or B, someone's, playing around with registration, so.
Really,
What,
really.
there's more than one person with the same name in the world?
It could
Whoa.
be. There was
Wow.
another April Volk at Key Bank. 2 April Volks at Key Bank.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, according to Google, I am the only Robert Nettgen on Earth.
that's amazing.
I
So-
have yet
so
to
back
find
to-
Could have told you
another
that.
Robert
Back
Nettgen
to
on
the
Earth.
story, though. Last night, we were talking to a few folks here at Happy Hour, and I heard somebody say, well, nobody's really worried about my little business. And I think this is a wake-up call, like, are you targeting, meteorology systems or whatever? So I think everybody just needs to be diligent. I mean, just because you're a small operation doesn't mean you're not going to be subjected to all of these ransomware threats, and you do need to plan.
And this, I would hazard a guess, this was not a targeted attack. Somebody
No.
got an email and
Yeah.
clicked the link and it went around and encrypted a bunch of stuff.
Right.
But what it highlights to me is large enterprise organizations, which a lot of us probably represent. Every bank, every insurance company, every hopefully manufacturer has a resiliency plan. But when you get out to these smaller organizations where IT and cyber security really probably isn't part of their daily nomenclature, they don't have this. And I think this is a great opportunity for organizations like ISC Squared and ISACA and all the other security groups to think about how we can get the ideas of resiliency and talking through these things out to these kind of more less traditional security organizations.
It's still an education process for a lot of these folks,
Yep.
because even if you have a lot of the players inside who may get it, the decision makers may or may not get it.
Correct.
And that's really, it's not unlike a lot of other things that have preceded information security. If we think about industrial safety, my father, I've heard stories about him, a lot of stories. He passed away just a few years ago, but I've heard stories about the days when he was an iron worker. And gosh, some 50 years plus ago, they had, well, almost 60 years ago, they had no safety in this ironworking profession. You know, they'd walk these giant I-beams, and he came home one day telling my mother that, gee, somebody had just died on the work site. And he was saying, you know, he was seriously thinking about changing professions. Being an electrician was a lot safer than being an iron worker. But today, they, of course, have safety standards. And analogous to that, information security, is it not following the same evolution? We unfortunately have to have so many events occur before people get it.
Well, there's an awareness difference with the, you're right, there's an evolution, right? But there's an awareness difference of walking on a high beam. You're very aware of the dangers of that, right?
Right.
The individual is, but the
whereas-
people who are employing them maybe
Yeah.
haven't thought about it.
When you're sitting drinking your morning coffee and you get an email with a coupon for Topgolf, right? Oh,
I love Topgolf.
exactly. I'm just gonna click the crap out of that, forward it to all my friends. One of the funny stories, an organization I worked for years ago, in the DC office, one of the executives got an email and he got this link and he clicked on it and it didn't do anything. So he clicked on it, he kept clicking, nothing was going on. And so he forwarded it to his assistant and he's like, you know, can you click on this? It's not working for me. So she clicked on it and then she forwarded it to like even the local IT guy and he clicked on it and nothing was happening. Well, our SOC was like lighting up like a Christmas tree, and it looked like the DC office was just, you know, getting infected. So we picked up the phone. What's going on over there? But
Something
it's
detonated.
funny. It's it's an awareness thing. Like hey,
Total awareness. I mean, you know, we know it, but to borrow a term that Mr. Cockley uses, we are all in the security bubble. You
Yeah,
know, so we get
that's
it.
right.
But these folks, you know, we need to evangelize the world of InfoSec to them.
I think there's a gentleman in the audience who raised his hand. Did you had a comment or question? I think.
My son's a college student, and his internet failed when it came back up.
Your son's a college student. I'm going to repeat it for the folks on Zoom who can't hear you. Your son's a college student, and his computer got infected.
He ended up getting a ransomware on
He
it.
got ransomware.
He writes back to me, he says, look, I'm a college student, I've got $42.36.
He's a college student. He's only got $42.
And they said, prove it.
He said, prove it.
So he took scanned his university ID, and sent it to him, and he said, all right, send us $25. He sent him $25.
He negotiated with
and
the
they gave him
ransomware
the
guys.
key. They thought they just picked
Wow.
somebody at random and thought they were gonna hit the bait.
He was the
Look,
victim of a
you're all
drive-by
guys.
phishing.
I'm surprised he didn't call
negotiated with
Dad.
them. You know, that college student has a future career as a ransomware negotiator, you know?
Right.
Speaking of ransomware, and you know, sir, you just beautifully segued into my next story. I mean, this is great. I didn't plan this. This is really wonderful. Black Matter ransomware victims quietly helped using secret decryptor. Yeah, another cool name for this malware, Black Matter.
Take out a secret.
I'm sorry?
Secret. Take out a secret.
Cybersecurity
80s
firm MCSoft, I'm sure I didn't say that right, has been secretly decrypting Black Matter ransomware victims since the summer, saving victims millions of dollars. MCSoft and its CTO, Fabian Wosar, have been helping ransomware victims recover their files since 2012, when an operation called ACCD FISA was launched as the first modern ransomware. Since then, Wosar and others have been working tirelessly to find flaws in ransomware's encryption algorithms that allow decryptors to be made. However, to prevent ransomware gangs from fixing these flaws, MCSoft works quietly with trusted partners in law enforcement and incident response to share news of these decryptors rather than making them publicly available. A
Except
secret...
this article.
I beg your pardon?
Except this article.
Two for the good guys now. We're up to
Yeah.
two.
Yes, two for the good guys. Yay!
I'm out, let's go to the bar.
There's hope.
Well, just to bring us back to reality, a popular NPM package hijacked to publish crypto mining software. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, I guess that's CISA, on Friday warned of crypto mining and password stealing malware. Crypto mining and password stealing malware. I mean, you know, those dramatic titles, you know, it just sounds like another page out of a movie script. embedded in UAP parsers, a popular JavaScript NPM library with over 6 million weekly downloads, days after the NPM repository moved to get rid of 3 rogue packages that were found to mimic the same library. The supply chain attack targeting the open source library saw 3 different versions that were published with malicious code following a successful takeover of the maintainer's NPM account. Supply chain attacks, we're hearing more of that these days. They're poisoning
It's
the
the
well.
first I heard of it.
They're poisoning the well. I mean, you know, just when everybody gets familiar with security in terms of the folks we're trying to educate, now we got to explain things beyond SolarWinds about these supply chain attacks and how they manifest.
I'm not allowed to say solar winds. I refer to it as electric breeze. My lawyers might be listening.
But
You're under NDA.
are sometimes developers harder to educate, perhaps? Developers who want to have admin authority, who don't want to deal with security, who just want to get it done, damn it, because that's what everybody's telling them to do. Are developers harder to secure in terms of development?
I will give you 2 responses. Yes, developers are a very challenging group to work with. And the main reason for that are product managers. Because product managers don't provide adequate time to meet the demands of the business.
You mean the project managers are saying, get it done, damn it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Damn the consequences. They prioritize speed over stability and security.
Full steam ahead, damn the bots.
And I think it along those lines, I mean, it comes down to priority, right? The developers are given the priority, and the priority is to get it done, get it out. And then we're also seeing that's the big shift to DevOps, right, and Agile.
SecOps.
DevSec, thank you. We should assume that, though.
No, say that 5 times fast. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're seeing that transition so that we can catch mistakes like that. Waiting for the big bang, boom, drop an app, right? And now it's secure. You know, instead of doing it all at once, we slowly are modifying it so we can hopefully reduce the risk of having those kinds of issues. But yeah, you're right. I think developers it's all about prioritization and what, you know, what drives them and incentivize them. So
Thinking back to your steelwork analogy, how there was a major incident and protocols were put into place. Software development is a 50, 60-year-old discipline, relatively young compared to the trades. And security was bolted on in the last 15 years.
20 years, right, exactly.
Of those 60 or so years. And when you look back, a lot of this problem is because of the transition from waterfall, which was terrible, to more agile methodologies. But what was nice about waterfall was it was methodical. There was a process, and you had those checks, and you had, unfortunately, gates. Which held the business back, but you were able to, if you had to do a scan or a check, it had to get done, otherwise it wouldn't go out, which, again, there's that pressure between the business for that speed of delivery. And Agile, unfortunately, a lot of Agilists
Is that a
got
word?
their revenge. Agilists, yes, Agile practitioners. They got their revenge by saying, fuck it, there are no rules. I'm gonna go as fast as I can because you held me under such tight constraints for so many years, and unfortunately, a lot of that good discipline was lost and wasn't brought back in, and that's why you see the rise of DevOps, because we're trying to get back some of the processes baked in through automation.
Are there any good presentations on that topic at this summit? I wonder.
You know,
I think
there
Chris Bush
may
is doing
be.
something, isn't he?
Yes.
Well, the last thing I said, you know, so what would you rather drive, a Ferrari or, you know, a K car, right? A nice, reliable, or, you know, whatever, right? So as a developer, right, I want to do the cool,
If you had
fun.
$1 million, would you buy a K car? I'd buy you a monkey.
What's a K car?
Haven't you always wanted a monkey?
K
Aries
cars were
K-car?
made before April was born, I'm afraid.
Yeah, they don't make them anymore. I was trying to
It kind
think.
of sounded cool, but I don't think it is.
Well, what's the modern version of the K car? Was it some sort of a Buick or?
Focus.
Oh, Ford Focus. yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, yeah.
So as a developer, right, I want to build the cool, sexy, fun thing, right? And not that security isn't that or
I
can't.
think security's sexy, Joe. You're a sexy boy.
And that'll be the end of the panel for today.
Moving right along, we got just over 5 minutes for our main attraction, our keynote coming up this morning. Meanwhile, A story I can't read to you because I haven't subscribed to the New York Times. A rare win in the cat and mouse game of ransomware. A team of private security sleuths in their public detailing of their efforts discuss how they use the cybercrime criminals' mistakes to quietly help victims recover their money. I think that's the same story about Black Matter.
At what percentage of the articles are ransomware, if you had to guess?
Over 50%,
Yes.
I would say. I mean, and that's an interesting point. In my process of gathering stories for Security Friends, I curate over the course of a month in excess of 100 security news articles. Security news articles like this one: Microsoft warns of a new attack behind SolarWinds. The group behind SolarWinds, rather. Okay, yes, we like
wanna
that.
sign
You
up?
need to buy
let's
some
actually try to get the story
subscriptions.
here. Microsoft is warning that the hacking group behind SolarWinds has launched another campaign against the global supply chain, including resellers and providers of cloud technology. So, yeah, I mean, you know, there's all of that going on. But what I want to really talk about in the last few minutes that we have left here before our main attraction, our keynote this morning, is senior pranks. What do you remember about high school about doing senior pranks? Because this one takes the cake.
Shaving cream on a doorknob.
Hackers
I don't wanna-
rickroll
I
their
don't wanna talk
entire
about it.
high school district at once. Never going to give the senior prank up. Yes. Earlier in April this year, this past April, a group of teenage hackers worked together to project Rick Ashley's 1987 jam, Never Gonna Give You Up, into 6 high schools across Illinois' High School District 214 via network projectors. This story isn't one of those typical Rickrolls where students sneak Rick Ashley into presentations, talent shows, or Zoom calls, explained the lead hacker behind the prank in a blog post. And I highly encourage people to hear that blog post. It was featured on last week's Security Now podcast with Steve Gibson. It's really fun to listen to. He hijacked every network display in every school to broadcast Never Give You Up in perfect not just broadcast, they were in perfect synchronization. Whether it was on
The
a TV in a
ultimate
hall,
That's
a
the
projector in a
ultimate
classroom,
Rickroll,
or a
exactly.
Jumbotron, as long as it was network, he hacked it.
It's harmless, so I encourage that. We should hire that person.
Well, he's in college now, as opposed to jail, but he actually did break laws, and to the school's credit, because immediately after he did this prank, he came forward with a pen test report and handed it anonymously to the school. And then, after he graduated, because the kid's no dummy, after he graduated, he then shed his anonymity and said, okay, guys, do you want to ask questions and get more information about the pen test report?
I like it. He should definitely work for one of our companies.
Having high school students,
He
I'm
might
conflicted
already.
by this report.
Do you want to have your kids hack school?
Maybe. Maybe not.
You know, at least they have computers to have fun with. When I was in high school, all I could hack was the PA system, which I did.
That turned out okay.
It actually, well, I did it after hours with permission, so you can't really call it hacking.
Right.
But nobody knew how to use all the advanced features of that PA system in the 70s. And I actually figured out how to work this tube monstrosity with its 200 buttons and switches, and figured out how to reroute audio from the gymnasium over the entire school, or how to put a school classroom on over the rest of the school, and we could do live remotes from a classroom. So it was,
And that's how
great
most
box.
But that
hackers and
pales.
researchers get into the
Yes.
craft, is they're curious. I want
Yes.
to understand how this works, or I
Right.
don't like how this works. I want to figure out how to fix it.
indeed.
That's cool. Look at you, hacker.
Well,
that.
I don't know
Get
if I
your
would,
black hoodie out.
I don't know if I would call myself a hacker. I was just a kid playing with a PA system, which pales by comparison to what this young man did in that Indiana or Illinois school. I forget which, but just a wonderful, wonderful story, and it's featured in last week's Security Now
Well,
podcast, as well as the
I just
blog
want to
post.
say that I think that if you guys remember, you go back to when the first worms or viruses came out, I always thought, how stupid the I love you one, right?
Oh,
You double,
yeah.
and it just replicates and everyone gets it in their inbox. Any developer, any smart person knows, even back then, like what you can really do with a worm or a virus is scary, right? And now we're finally seeing it with ransomware. We're seeing what actually can be done. So I'm not surprised. But
Indeed.
It's
It's a tremendous potential. And with that, we conclude today's episode of Security Friends. Thank you, everybody, at the Information Security Summit. I want to again thank April Volk, Joe Daw, and Christopher CRob Robinson, my panel here, who really made this happen because I could read all the stories in the world and it would be absolutely boring without all this insight and information from, frankly, really intelligent thought leaders in information security. Thank you again.